when you're doing your consulting, how does that look like? What are some of the things that are keep coming back that you help organizations or individuals with?
Yeah, so there are like a few key things. The most important skills, I believe, for working remotely effectively is mastering the communication. That comes first from the fact that many people in general could improve like their communication skills. That's something that you can probably always work on, and the better you become, like the best outcome you get. And that even goes further than just work, right? It affects all your relationships, your friendships, your relationship, even in personal life. But there is one thing that maybe not everybody realized yet, that there are some particularities to remote communication. So it's not exactly the same in the office than when you are working remotely. So there is a couple of things that it's especially important, that when you work remotely, you need to be much more clear. So that's one thing. And then the communication should be ideally more visual. So it's not just words, but more like screenshots, more videos, so people can just see what you mean rather than writing like very long emails. We still write way too many emails. Like lots of people communicate like maybe 70% by emails, with things that could have been like, shown on video, or maybe like recording your screen. That's also a way easier way to explain than just writing like long emails. So sometimes we lose like lots of time on the things that could be like, if we grasp the idea that it should be just clear, to the point, straight and visual, then we would save lots of time. Then another thing that it's very difficult for many people is setting a proper boundaries. Mm-hmm. And that comes to the time, like, over times, communicating with clients. So when people work in the office, then you would have like maybe more clear timing when you would start and you would leave. And that would be defined by the fact that you arrived at the office and you left, right? And what happened with COVID for so many people is that they just like work more hours than they would, because the computer was at home, they were at home, and it's just like kind of you can continue, right? And there is always like people reaching out to you, so you can just like continue. And if you don't have like, those boundaries in place, that this is like my working hours, or this is like my limit, this is what we agreed on, then it's sometimes difficult for people to stop. And many people even see putting boundaries like not being kind or not being nice. Like they just don't see how to do that. And that part can be tough if you haven't done that in the beginning. I think it's way easier to lie like the way how we're gonna collaborate from the early beginning, than establish a relationship with clients or colleagues that is maybe missing certain boundaries, and then try to change it. Sometimes it's really hard if you already get them used, that you will be always available, right? Then there is things like, mixing personal and professional life. So this is because nowadays, like, people can find you anywhere, right? The clients can find you on Facebook. Some people, like, if they have your phone, they're gonna send you a message, and then you have like that personal area and professional, like, kind of mixing. People sometimes, in order like to be nice, to be approachable, they are available. And then they realize that maybe, some clients or some colleagues cross the lines and like contacts you at 10 p.m. by night, because they already have your phone and wrote you a message. So it becomes more difficult for you to not reply to the message on WhatsApp than not giving the WhatsApp in the first place, right? So sometimes we have to think about it before it happens, because then it's if you connected on WhatsApp and haven't replied the message, it's just like you are ignoring them, right? But we need to think about it like before, especially that we're gonna change the time zones. Time zones is another thing that people need to have a plan. What do you do with them? If you work like for the company, you may want to establish like hours that you are available, and then you have to stick to it, even if you change the time zone. Mm-hmm. If you work with clients, you also have to think about it. If I move to another country, am I going to take calls at 11 p.m.? Am I, or am I not, right? Yeah. That's something that has to be established, I would say, at the beginning, because that's what leads lots of people to burn out, actually, and to be, I would say, resenting even in certain way, because when you are giving more than you want for a long time, you start to resent the colleagues, the boss, the clients, the organization, because you don't know how to get out of that, but you also don't want to continue. So I do think that, like, learning how to put my limits from the beginning and to put them also in a kind way. So it doesn't look like I'm not being available. It doesn't look like conflict. It doesn't look like me defending. It's just the boundaries are actually to keep people in our life for a long term, not to stop them or prevent them from accessing us. So that's two. Then another thing is also self-motivation.
Mm-hmm.
That's something many people struggle. Depends a lot on the job, on the task, right? Because if you have the deadlines itself, then the deadline's gonna act the same way, like, the necessity for go to the office. It doesn't really matter if you work from home. If you have the deadline for tomorrow, that's gonna motivate you. But it becomes maybe more challenging when you work for yourself, or maybe the task is not clearly defined. Like, it can be creative task, and then you just like, you don't feel like maybe today, maybe you don't feel tomorrow, but there is also not like
you're not flowing.
When you have to end that, and then self-motivation becomes really, really important thing. Like, how do we even do things we are not motivated to do when there is nobody to, like, to push us forward? So that's two. And I would say generally organization and planning. That's something that many people leave also to a chance. And when you have to be like more independent and work remotely in travel, it becomes like more important that you organize yourself well, that you are able to plan around your day, around the activities, and still, like, especially travel, but at the same time, like, do everything that you want to do or that you wish to do in terms of job.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And a lot of these things I relate to, as I've been part in companies, part of remote teams, and also entrepreneur myself. So I definitely see that. I really like what you said about the boundaries, because it's not just like with clients, but also the job. Maybe people are crossing your personal boundaries, but they don't know it. And you get this friction, and it just becomes this whole kind of story that you tell yourself. And then at one point it kind of explodes. It becomes like this ticking time bomb if you don't nurture that. So I think that's very strong what you said.